Good morning and welcome back to the Fractured Rooster Garage. Today, the inspector's here to look over the Bronco. I hope he likes what he's seeing. Easy keys. Hey, bud. All right. Oh, he's out. He didn't like to be on camera. Well, the time's come to at least unbox a quarter panel and see what I got. So I picked up a front fender and some foil-backed jute sound deadening for under the carpet. And I also picked up a passenger side rear quarter panel. This is the full quarter panel. They sell it in a smaller section. I believe it's from about the body line down. This being the full has the arch under the windows, and my body guy Ryan said it's much easier to just weld this together. I believe the other one, the seam was here, and he said trying to weld this long panel is just asking for warpage and waves, and then we'll have to fill it with Bondo and mud. He said here you've got small sections to scab in and weld, way less chance of error and warpage, and I trust him. I don't know, but he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. I went and bought a 1/2-inch belt sander to get in here and sand along the edges of these to find all of the spot welds. So we'll pull off all this weather stripping, and then we'll just run a strip of sandpaper down the edges of this entire panel, find all the spot welds, cut them all out with the 3/8-inch double-sided rotary spot weld cutter. It's got a, oh, I thought that was spring-loaded in the center. It is. Well, it's got a spring-loaded tip. Typically you drill a pilot hole, you know, like a 16th or an 1/8-inch drill bit on the center of all those spot welds, and you stuff that through the hole, and then it centers the, indexes the cutter, and the teeth obviously do all the cutting. So I bought a couple of those because one always breaks on you. So we'll just go along. You can see here, this is what the spot welds look like. The majority of them are going to be easy to find, but when we get down around this fender where, you know, rust has kind of taken over the paint, it's going to be a little difficult. So inner fender starts about here, and it looks like it runs all the way down the bottom of this fender. So we may have to do some reconstruction on the back side of that. You cannot buy these inner fender wells, unfortunately, so we may have to recreate that, but I'm not too worried. The rest of this truck is in pretty good shape. So just water penetration, I'm guessing, from this window at some point. Once we get this fender off, I'm definitely gonna have Ryan come over and pull this glass before I can cut it off, because we're gonna have to cut the fender about here and here. So I probably should call Ryan now and see if he's busy today, because that's got to come out. And then when he puts it back in, obviously he'll reseal it, and our problems will be solved. No more leaks. Let me clean up this area, and we'll test fit that fender. Well, I thought we were saving some easy stuff for this morning. I didn't think this fender was going to be a big deal. And then I realized the bumper had to come off. And you can imagine how rusty and crusty these fasteners are. It's taken me quite a while to soak them down and break them loose with big breaker bars and swivels on extensions on swivels and to all that sketchiness. But there's 4 bolts that hold this thing on. All right, all the fasteners are out. Oh, let me disconnect this light so we don't rip it out of the socket. And there it is. So the bumper's off. I hate to replace it because it's so nice, but there's really no room to mount or build any type of like a traditional receiver, because the gas tank is right behind the bumper, within 6 inches of probably the bumper, which is also kind of what Ford did back then, right? Hashtag Pinto. I've already found most of the obvious spot welds, but these down here are not quite so obvious, so let's find those. well, that found 3 of them for us. The support stops here, so this is all just quarter panel. Cool, so it's just 3 more to drill out here, maybe a 4th hiding right there. I think it's just 3. So we'll drill out those 3, and we'll find a couple more up here. Yeah, there's another one there. Yeah, this is going to be just kind of a fact-finding mission here, but that's cool. Well, you see how it's done. Just seek and destroy. That's about it. Wish I could cue the Metallica right now, but copyright. So once I've found the spot weld, I drill a hole through the center of the spot weld. Just like that. And that will index our spot weld cutter. Which I guess now is as good a time as any to show that thing in action. It's right here after all. Okay, I found lower is almost better on these, so just center up on it. Alrighty. Might have to walk it around in somewhat of a circle, but it'll eat. And you'll know when you get through the front panel, because you'll almost see it lift away from the back panel. Once it's broke free, you can move on to the next one. And if you have to get back in there with some with something to pry that apart, a chisel or a putty knife, go ahead and do it. Well, the fender's cut off. You can see it here on the floor. Back side looks a lot worse than the front side did, and that's always the case with rust. Here's what we're left with. Most of the lower front is gone. We're going to have to reconstruct that into the rocker panel even here. And a fair bit of fender well is also gone, so LMC truck sells a replacement panel for this. Unfortunately, it's on back order, but it's kind of a corrugated strip that you can mold and tack it in place as you need it. But I think we're gonna have to make our own on that, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna finish cleaning all this up. My glass guy, Ryan, can't get over here till tomorrow to pull this glass out, so we'll have to take a break for the day, but I'm just gonna clean up what I can here and hopefully maybe try and do a couple test fits. If not, we'll just have to wait till tomorrow. But So the plan for today is to get this new quarter panel that's over on the workbench, buried under a bunch of stuff, get that new quarter panel at least tacked in place, which is going to require us to fab up a little bit of sheet metal here. A lot of this stuff is just rotten, falling apart. You can't buy replacement panels for this type of stuff, so we'll clean up what we can, and we'll probably have to make another piece here. Probably do this entire lip, at least the bottom side that we'll be welding to. Maybe redo a lot of that, but yeah. Some patch panels, and then we'll get that quarter panel stuck on here and at least tacked into place so that I can get this thing in and out of the shop and open up some space to work on some other things in between getting back on this guy. Yeah. So without further ado, cue the death wheels. Well, bear with me, I lost my lapel microphone. What I'm doing now is I reached into the scrap bin, found some old metal in the pile, and I'm just roughing this out. I think I want to build a pattern before I cut this hole, rather than cut the hole then try to make a pattern to fit it. I think it's better to make a pattern and then use that as the pattern to cut out. I think you'll be chasing your tail a lot less doing this. Okay, so I got 2 points, and I have a pretty good radius idea here. I have a perfectly good fender over there. I think I should use it as a template. What do you think? Well, that's what I came up with. It looks pretty damn good, actually. I think I'm just going to grab the snips and it'll work. So that's what we came up with. Not terrible. That is not terrible. Okay, now I will mark the back side where we need to bend our 90-degree flange. So, wow, that's hideous. There we go. So, right about in there, I'll need to go grab the duck bills and probably clamp this side and then work this side up to a 90-degree. In hindsight, I probably should have bought 2 pair. Because I'm going to be chasing these vice grips all day long. Welcome back. I grabbed some lunch and tacked this panel and found my microphone, so hope you can hear me a little better. As you can see, I started off here and the welds were not that great, but as time went on they got a little better. I've never claimed to be a good welder, but it's functional. Still pretty hot, but I'll let that cool. We'll hit that with the flap wheel because we're going to have a fender mounted to it. So we'll at minimum get this face nice and smooth and flush. And I'll primer over the top of it. That'll be the end of that repair, and then we'll hang a quarter panel and figure out what we're going to do down here. That looks way better. It's at least functional now. That's what we're going for here. Damn, look at that. I did a thing. It's going to be structural. That gap came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that one. And then the whole door seam seems to be pretty well uniform all the way down. But yeah, overall I would say fit and finish of this, I would say probably Chinese or Japanese fender is excellent. It's exceeding my expectations. As you can see here, I can't see it, but hopefully you can see how our little filler panel is filled in nicely. We'll come up in here. I think I'm going to go buy a tack welder. They're like 150 bucks from Harbor Freight. Allow me to clamp this and just tack it a bunch of times. Clamp that whole seal and tack it a bunch of times. Clamp a bunch of pieces here in the back that I would otherwise have to drill a hole through and then do a rosette weld, and I don't know, it just seems like something cool to have on the shelf. quarter panel's on. Just a little bit of fit finish work down here, and I'll be able to stick it all on for good, for forever. And we can move to the other side where we have just the little corner to replace, which should go super fast. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Fractured Rooster Garage. It's another day on the Bronco. As you can see, the trucks are stacking up behind me. We've made some big moves lately to haul some big equipment, hopefully to a big new location. More to come on that. As you can remember, the last time we worked on the Bronco, we were sticking this quarter panel on, and I think the pieces we had to scab in here came out okay. Oh, this came out great. This came out just okay down here. There may be a little bit more bending and tweaking to do on that, but I'm fairly happy with that fit. Our cut lines came out well. This one might need a little bit of attention. I might have to throw like a 1-inch piece in here to bridge that gap. That might be a little bit too much to fill with a weld. And this morning I've got a couple of hours, so I thought I would turn my attention to this spot. The inner rocker, just like the other side, and the inner well. Actually, this inner well is perfect. I think water just leaked here, puddled down here. I'm not really sure how that happened, but it happened. So this, you can't buy this, so we're having to cut this out and recreate it just like we did on the other side. And to facilitate that fabrication, I threw some paper in here, just did a quick trace job, threw a couple questionable cut lines in there, transferred that over to some of the old metal that we cut off the passenger side, and now we have a workable interior piece. I'm holding it backwards. There we go. It was on a little something like that. So that will all get bent, twisted, hammered on, heated, and shaped to turn itself into a replacement panel. All right, well, a couple more minutes of hammering. I made some relief cuts around that edge because I'd be folding that metal onto itself if I didn't. And I mean, I'm not joking. I'm telling you, it's just, sometimes it's just that easy. Sometimes I don't know if it's beginner's luck, but panel contours almost perfectly, top and bottom. So I'll chalk that up to beginner's luck, but I'll take a win where I can get it. So be right back. Well, as we well know, I'm a grinder, not a welder, so I hit those welds with the grinder just to clean them up a little bit. We'll hit everything with some bare metal primer. And I wouldn't say brand new, but hey, as good as used. Well, that's that. The only thing left is to stick the patch panel on over once that paint dries. I think the next step is going to require me to go make a trip back to Harbor Freight and buy the tack welder, the pinch weld tack welder. I think that'll serve me well all along this lip here. That way I don't have to drill a bunch of small holes and do those rosette welds and grind them down. just that pinch welder will just make it happen. Hopefully with no grinding required afterwards, but I'll let that paint dry. It does take an extra long time to dry, so we'll leave that. And I'll leave you waiting on paint to dry. That never happens quickly, so this will end the part 1 of the bodywork or quarter panel replacement on the Bronco. Part 2 will pick up with me tacking all this stuff on here, welding up all the seams, maybe even throwing some mud on some stuff to, you know, graft it together properly. So anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned, you know, for the rest of what I just talked about, and we'll see you on the next video. Pretty pumped. The body lines came out really good. First time I'm seeing it out of the shop in months.